I come into the Silver Daddy class, you know. There's a club known as Silver Daddies in Bristol.
Is there? Is there really?
Yes. I'm not going to go.
You're not going to visit. Well, I'm ready when you are.
Go on.
Can you tell me what you did before Him magazine? A bit about your background.
What did I do? Well, I come from a very working class background. I started off life working for a builder's merchant, and I basically stayed working for a builder's merchant on and off until somehow, I really don't know how, I came across Alex McKenna, who was in those days producing a magazine called Jeffrey with somebody called Jürgen Dahmer, who lived with his boyfriend Jeffrey, and but the magazine was spelt with a J, and Jürgen's boyfriend was a G, and somehow, and I can't think what it was, but I wrote these spoof cookery columns and sent them in, and they published them, and that's how it all started, really. So I knew Alex, and Shish Lorraine was my nom de plume, and so Shish Lorraine used to write the cookery columns.
And what sort of year was this?
Oh, when are we talking about? God, I suppose late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
And prior to that, of course, they decriminalised homosexuality between two consenting adults in private in England and Wales in 1967.
They decriminalised it.
Yes, they decriminalised it. Do you remember what life was like before that for a gay man?
Well, I never worried me.
Mm.
And I don't think it worried a lot of people, because remember, the attitude of people was changing. We had rather risque comedians on television. We had risque programmes on the radio. I'm not sure when Beyond Our Ken started, but I mean, let's face it, that was the campest thing that ever appeared on radio. And Kenneth Williams and Hugh Paddock and Betty Martin, they just were outrageous. So public opinion was ready for it. And Roy Jenkins was a very, very progressive reforming Home Secretary. He reformed the laws on obscenity, and he reformed the laws on homosexuality.
Do you remember if there were any bars or clubs in London back then?
Oh yes, of course there were. I mean, there was the Embassy Club, there was the Festival Club, the A&B, the Rockingham, the 50 Club, the Vortex down in Victoria, which was very lesbian. I never went there. I knew of it, but I never went there. I don't know about lesbians. So, but yes, they all existed. But discos didn't exist. Forget discos. They were drinking clubs. Mm. And they were open almost when the owner was there. I mean, because they were clubs, they were exempt from the licensing laws in some way. I'm not quite sure which.
And you would have met your partner Colin in 1963.
Yeah.
Was it easy courting back then?
No, it was. I don't know if it was courting. I don't know whether we courted. I sort of met him, and it just went from there. You know, I suddenly became a permanent fixture in his life. Heaven knows what his poor mother must have thought. Here was a 36-year-old, very middle-class man, company director, public school, Cambridge educated, turning up with this bit of rough of 20 years old, who still couldn't really speak properly. You know, I still dropped the old H's and talked like that in a sense, I suppose, you know, and I learned, didn't I? I learned.
We've mentioned Him magazine briefly. You talked about Alex McKenna.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about Him magazine itself?
Well, it was right. It was a magazine which was put together by Alex McKenna, Alan Purnell, Chris Bell, who used to do the books, and I used to sort of do sales, if that's what I did. But I was sort of the spare bod. I did anything and everything, you know. I never took the photographs, and I never had anything to do with layout. That was Alex McKenna and Alan Purnell who used to do that.
Was it a form of pornography?
Oh, come on, what is pornography? It carried no penetration shots. That was absolutely forbidden. I'll come to something, just a second. There were plenty of lazy lob photographs. I mean, Mike McGrath, who's still going now from his studios in Earl's Court, used to photograph rent boys, soldiers, sailors, and always took the photographs after the point of ejaculation, so that the penis was going down, was still engorged, but it was going down, and always oiled, so it was highlighted, and so it was known as a lazy lob. But that's so. The penetration thing was, there was a strange committee, his name I will remember, and I went to their committee meeting once, and it was all the straight porn boys. And David Gold, who was the distributor of him, asked me if I would go. So I suppose I must have looked like, I was probably the oldest one of the quadrant that ran him, but I got invited. And I do remember this weird meeting when they decided what was penetration. Was it past the first knuckle or the second knuckle on a finger, or was it the whole finger? So was it, and if you could determine whether it was the first knuckle or the second knuckle, you could determine as to how far the cock had actually penetrated the vagina. No one ever said the cock up the bum, because I didn't do that, but they had a whole meeting on this. And this committee existed for a long while.
And what were the forms of punishment you could have had?
Well, there was Section 2, which was the worst, or Section 3. Section 3 was just the retailing of obscenity, and that was a fine. Section 2, you could go to jail on.
Really? Do you have any idea of what length the sentence would be?
Yes, there was a very lovely boy called Tony Reynolds who got done on a Section 2 importing American magazines. And he was stunned. Well, to my eyes, he was stunned. He was to a lot of other people. He went to jail, and unfortunately he caught AIDS, HIV there, and he died tragically. And he was the first person I knew who'd ever had HIV. I knew of it because I knew friends in America that died of this strange cancer. But Tony got it, and it went to his brain. And these were the days before they had the medication. It went to his brain. And I went and saw him, and I was so visibly shocked. And from that day, so this is from now, I'm talking about the late 80s to today, I will always support an AIDS charity above any other charity. And I've been a constant supporter of the Terence Higgins Trust and London Lighthouse. And when we've opened the garden here for the National Garden Scheme, we've always added, as our add-on, which we could give 25%, was an AIDS charity.
What were the years of Him magazine, do you remember?
I suppose the early 80s, through, I suppose, about 10 years.
So Him would have coincided with Gay News.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have many dealings with Gay News?
Well, they were another publication on the gay market. One tolerated them. They sometimes considered themselves slightly superior because they were a newspaper and we were a magazine.
Was there much news in Him?
Not to my knowledge, no. Plenty of adverts. Young, fit monsieur gives relaxing massage. Discretion guaranteed.
And did you ever visit the Gay News offices?
Only once, up at Paddington.
And what was Denis Lemon like? The editor.
Grand. G-R-A-N-D, capital letters. Who the fucking hell do you think you are, Richard?
Was he friendly? Was he pleasant?
Denis was as friendly as Denis wanted to be. And of course, once he'd appeared in the great trial, brought by Mary Whitehouse. I mean, come on. I've appeared at the Old Bailey. Where have you appeared, darling? Attitude.
Did that turn...
Drury Lane. Oh, nothing.
And that turned into a bit of a celebrity, didn't it?
Oh, yes, he was. He then was courted.
Yes.
People always a gay issue. Oh, ask Denis Lemon, editor of Gay News. You know, never think of Ask Alex Pennell or Alex McKenna or Alan Pennell. You know, publishers of a magazine, because magazines were born. My dear, newspapers were news. They were respectable. I don't think a unclothed picture of a male ever appeared in Gay News. It might have done, but I have no knowledge of it.
So what were your impressions of Gay News as a publication?
I suddenly thought what my impression was. The Morning Star, which was the Communist Party newspaper. It was a very lightweight piece of paper. It came to prominence with GLF, the Gay Liberation Front, and it carried newsy things, articles.
Would you have read it?
I used to pick it up and look through it and put it back on the shelf again.
Very diplomat. What did Colin make of your career with Him magazine and the content of Him magazine?
He was a sweetie right the way through. He probably hated it. But, I mean, he was just so lovely. So, therefore, it was me. It was making me happy. I made him happy. You know, I feel so sorry for him. I really do.
So your partner Colin was very supportive?
Oh, yes, but, you know, what I put him through. I wouldn't, you know, now. But there we are.
Were the offices ever raided?
Oh, what, of him? Oh, yes. Yes. Now we knew them. They came in, we said, oh, hello. And they say, got a warrant. Oh, yes, right, what do you want? And they say, all right, lads, magazines. And they go around and go, here, look at this. Oh, yeah, we'll have that one. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, we don't want that one. What about this one? No. And they would leave books. This was always an amusing thing. Books were left. You see, because, you know, dirty old men in raincoats didn't read. I mean, the books were porn, really outrageous porn, but there were pictures.
So the books were left alone?
Books, I didn't touch books.
But anything containing pictures?
Pictures, photos.
Was taken?
Yeah, because, you know, you could wank off over a photo. But you didn't wank off a book. Quite where that comes from, I don't know. You know, because the written word is more suggestive than the photograph, because it makes your mind work. That's the secret of every good author, is making your mind work.
Did you ever get into trouble yourself?
In what way?
Were you arrested?
I'd been arrested on the Section 3. I mean, there was an occasion when I got pulled up in the West End delivering an order to a customer, taken back to a police station, the back entrance of which overlooked Colin's business in the West End. And I thought, oh my God. But they said, and always they kept saying, you know, where'd you get these from? No comment. Says that, no comment. I can say anything. No, not really. All right then.
If you'd done anything differently with him, what would you have done?
I don't think you would have done. I think it was quite progressive for the time and the way it was. It was a very progressive magazine. It was ahead of its time. It was an excellent magazine. It was well put together. It gave you the value for the money you paid for it.
Do you think it could survive in today's market?
No. Far too tame.
And would you still want to be involved with it if it was?
No, I'm too old. Oh, I'd love to be involved in being the photographer's assistant. Oh, do give me that pair of knickers. Oh, yes.
If you'd been involved with Gay News, how would you have run it?
Well, I think I would have very much majored on the arts. When I eventually ran a magazine called Q International, I had a thing called the Blue Centaur. It's a pun. But we printed it on blue paper.
Oh.
And it was the arts. And we set out to make it the arts. We looked at the theatre. We looked at art in its purest form, any form of art. And through it, I did actually meet Christopher Isherwood, and I'm thrilled. I have a book inscribed to me by Christopher Isherwood. And I thought Christopher Isherwood was a lovely old individual. But, so that was good. And remember, there was a magazine at the time called After Dark, an American magazine. God, the name's gone straight through my mind. Bill somebody ran it. And it was an American magazine, and it used to have an award every year called the Ruby Awards, after Ruby Keeler. Mm-hmm. And I went one year to the Ruby Awards at the Astoria Hotel in New York. It was grand, it was black tie, and everything else. And it was the year Judy Garland's husband won it. Rio.
Yes, yes.
I'd never been to an American thing like this before. I thought, this is wonderful. When I came back, I thought, yeah. And of course, him ran Mr. Gay UK at one time. We fixed the first one, so the pretty boy who was the son of the shopkeeper up the road won it. Because we all wanted to see what he looked like in a pair of swim trunks.
Him magazine contained erotic stories. Who would write them?
Oh, they'd arrive in the post. Readers would write them.
Really? It's the readers?
Yeah, we used to get these scripts through the post. I hope you like this.
And often you did.
Oh yeah. I love erotic fiction. I think erotic fiction. There's an erotic fiction site now called Nifty Gay Stories, which I love. I plough through it almost on a daily basis. I find it quite pleasant.
What happened to him magazine?
It just closed naturally. Sales went off. You can only print so many magazines to make a profit. When you go below that figure, you don't make a profit. You make horrendous losses. So it just finished. And I think Alan Purnell went off, and lived on the success of it for ages. And Alex McKenna and Chris Bell broke up. Then they got together again in the Levers. Now Alex runs a muscle magazine. Chris still runs the great Maliva Empire. And we talk. I mean, we met up last year on my birthday. We had the most hilarious lunch in a hotel in London. And, there were two friends of myself from Somerset went up. And we had this lunch. And, it just was the stories. Unfortunately, they put us in the table away from everybody else. Because I think the rest of the diners would have,
Did you ever meet any members of him or Gay News in later life?
Oh, apart from Alex and Chris. Otherwise, no. No.
You've talked about Alex and Chris. There was another person called Brian Derbyshire.
Oh!
Was he a good friend of yours?
No, he bloody well wasn't.
Why was that?
Oh, I found him an absolutely obnoxious individual. People just say, oh, Brian Derbyshire. Oh, no, he wasn't. No way.
What do you think was him's greatest legacy?
It broke boundaries. And it set parameters which others were able to come in and fill.
What do you think some of those parameters were?
Freedom of expression. They were pioneering. They did do things which eventually, others had to. George Maviti, who was a big George, was the publisher of Playgirl magazine. Playboy, Playgirl.
There was a
Play Guy magazine in New York. And that was a magazine we'd all love to emulate. That was one. There was The Advocate. There were a variety of American magazines. But you see, American magazines sold 100,000, English magazines 10,000. The scale of sale and everything else, and they had freedom because of the Constitution, which we didn't have. They got away with it.
How did Q International come about?
I was then working in the West End. I was working as an assistant in a very expensive gentleman's outfitters in Bond Street, because I hadn't got a job, and somebody had said to Colin, "Oh, do you know anybody who's any good at sales?" And Colin said to me, "You might enjoy it." So I said yes. I went along, and I did enjoy it. It was great fun. I learned how to measure for shirts. Oh, they were nice people. It was very good. I then walked into David Gold one day, and he said, "Why don't you come back out? Come run a magazine for me?" And I think there was the thrill of it more than anything else.
And how was Q International different from him?
No, there was no difference at all, just a different name.
And how long did Q last?
Q lasted about 6 years.
Do you miss it?
No.
And was there a link between him and Gay Times? Did him become Gay Times eventually, or is there no link at all?
I don't honestly know. I was out of business by then.
And what became of Alan Gloak?
What became of Alan Gloak? Alan Gloak grew up and realised that, one has to find a role in life. And so I disappeared off the scene completely. I became very legalised. I went and got a proper job. I ended up as a sales and marketing manager for a national company in the horticultural industry. I then became a sales director for another company. I started going back to my first true love, which was politics. I got elected to local councils. I became chairman of the county council. Still a screaming old queen that I am, and I'm now in my latter years. I live alone now. Colin, unfortunately, long gone. Not long gone. Died a year ago.
You were mayor as well at one point.
I've been mayor. I've been chairman of the council. The only thing I never was chairman of the district council, and I'm rather glad I wasn't chairman of the district council. I didn't like district council. I just think that, I grew up.
Have you enjoyed life?
Yes, of course I have.
How would you like to be remembered?
He enjoyed life. Yeah. I've got no... There are... I think the song Regrets... Well, I've got a few, but then again, too few to mention.
In your lifetime, what do you think are the biggest changes in terms of gay issues and gay rights that you've witnessed?
Freedom. The removal of the fear. And the reason Roy Jenkins legalised homosexuality between two consenting adults over the age of 21 was to remove blackmail. And it removed blackmail. People are no longer frightened. They shouldn't be. And that's the big thing. You should not be frightened. If you are gay, you're gay.
What would you give your young self? What advice would you give?
Think of others. Perhaps I should have thought of Colin more.
Do you have any regrets then?
Yeah. I think I put him through hell.
What do you think your greatest achievement is?
My greatest achievement is I started a charity in 2007 to raise funds for young athletes, able and disabled, in Somerset. So far, we've raised about £250,000. We've helped about 90 odd young athletes, and I think if I can really look back on that, and making my town a more pleasant and enjoyable place to live in.
What do you think of the gay press today?
What is the gay press today? I think there's a magazine called Attitude. Isn't there a magazine called Gay Times now?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, I think there is. The local Sainsbury's do not stock it. I don't think I've seen it in the local Tesco's either. So where you buy them, it would be, I suppose, London, or you'd get it as a subscription. What I've seen of them, they're very glossy, they're very professional. Maybe there is a element of people who run them who are gay, but they are a professional magazine. Like Country Life, like Vogue, like everything else.
You lived in Kensington. This is my final question. Do you remember places like the Colin?
Oh yes.
What were they like?
They were great fun. The two big pubs in Kensington were the Boltons and the Colin. They were on opposite corners. And the Boltons was on the corner of Redcliffe Gardens and Earls Court Road. And it was an upstairs bar. Downstairs was straight, and you went in, and then there was a big staircase which led you to the upstairs bar, and that was the gay side. And that was young, fluffy blondes looking for silver-haired daddies. I never found one. I was never a young, fluffy blonde. I'd have loved to have been a young, fluffy blonde. I think I would, yes. Anyway, I think kids, they're so lovely, and they're so lucky, you know, and they can dress and everything else. Anyway, this by the by. The Colin was the exact opposite. I mean, it was yin and yang. And the Colin was leather, heavy. SM69 Club used to meet there. The whole thing was, you know, it was an entirely different setup. What was the strange thing was that in the days when I used to go there, we'd probably be on a Friday or a Saturday night, I don't know, because we didn't live far from there, so I'd walk up there. There was a woman playing a piano, and she didn't turn a hair to these incredible individuals who on Friday night and Saturday night had gone home from their office, had donned their leathers, and gone out on the bus to the Colin, or on the tube to the Colin, because they didn't have motorbikes. They all wanted, man. They were all sort of motorbikers. They were all James Dean or Marlon Brandos, but they didn't have the motorbikes. But they would turn up or in their cars, and then they'd swagger in, you know, and they'd drink their pints of beer, and of course that's the days before the gym. So they didn't have stunning bodies like today. I mean, they wouldn't be seen dead there now. I mean, the body is the thing now. Then it wasn't. I think your personality got you what you wanted in those days, not the body.
Do you think the scene's changed a lot?
Oh, it hasn't changed enormously. I mean, you look at today's kids, they're slim, they are fit, they have good bodies, they dress. Strangely enough, you don't see cock. Once upon a time, they would show their cock. Their cock would be, you would see it, you know, in their jeans or something. You don't see it today. They're androgynous. Where's the cock? I look, I don't see it.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Good grief, no.
Alan Gloak, thank you very much.
That's your life. Was that all right for you?
That was perfect. That was a nice length, so to speak. Which is perfect. Thank you.